Hi, I'm Ray Mars. This presentation will focus upon sustainability, but in particular what you can do as a designer to sustain a world that we all can continue to enjoy and design into. This presentation is accompanied by a static PDF without narration, allowing you to print out a full transcript in PowerPoint note form. So, what is sustainability? Should we bother? We'll take a brief look at the climate, ethical responsibility, government, corporate, educator, consumer. We'll also look at designer responsibility, sustainable design, recycling, upcycling, downcycling, and what you may consider doing personally. So, what is sustainability? Climate change, recycling, environmentalism, upcycling, ecological downcycling, green concerns, reusing, greenwash, disassembly, global warming, cradle to cradle, make do and mend, cradle to grave, womb to tomb, all of or none of. Dictionary definition of sustainable: sustain, maintain or prolong support. In 1987, a report defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So, what's the fuss all about? Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, written in 1962, was the book that kicked off the ecology movement. Cradle to Cradle, Remaking the Way We Make Things by William McDonough in 2002 has become the Bible of upcycling. An important book you should consider when looking at this subject matter is The Weathermakers, The History and Future Impact of Climate Change by Tim Flannery, produced in 2005. Turning our attention to videos and movies, Qatsi, Life Out of Balance, and Power Qatsi, Life in Transformation, released in 1982, were arguably the first movies to bring globalization and ecology to the forefront. An Inconvenient Truth, produced in 2002 and featuring Al Gore, was again one of the most important ecological movies of that decade. The significant movie, The Next Industrial Revolution, released in 2002 by William McDonough and Michael Braungart of Cradle to Cradle fame, was again a very, very important movie that has been very, very much underestimated until this day. Superstar Leonardo DiCaprio produced The 11th Hour in 2007 and was very important in bringing the ecology issue to a younger audience. Okay, now for a video break, and I think some thought-provoking sequences.
10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years. And the hottest of all was 2005. The scientific consensus is that we are causing global warming. I am Al Gore. I used to be the next president of the United States of America. This is Patagonia 75 years ago and the same glacier today. This is Mount Kilimanjaro 30 years ago and last year. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro. This is really not a political issue so much as a moral issue. Temperature increases are taking place all over the world, and that's causing stronger storms.
This is the biggest crisis in the history of this country.
Early this morning, Hurricane Katrina slammed into New Orleans.
Is it possible that we should prepare against other threats besides terrorists?
From Paramount Classics comes a film that has shocked audiences everywhere they've seen it.
The Arctic is experiencing faster melting. If this were to go, sea level worldwide would go up 20 feet. This is what would happen in Florida. Around Shanghai, home to 40 million people. The area around Calcutta, 60 million. Here's Manhattan. The World Trade Center Memorial would be underwater. Think of the impact of a couple 100,000 refugees, and then imagine 100 million. We have to act together to solve this global crisis. Our ability to live is what is at stake.
The weather and the climate are making news in more than one region.
Severe flooding has killed at least 72 people.
Under siege in the grip of unmitigated catastrophe.
The evidence is now clear. Industrial civilization has caused irreparable damage. Our political and corporate leaders have consistently ignored the overwhelming scientific evidence.
Not only is it the 11th hour, it's 11:59.
What we saw with Katrina is just prologue. Worse is yet to come.
The UN estimates that by the middle of the century, there may be 150 million environmental refugees.
There are too many of us using too many resources too fast.
The problem is that every living system is in decline, and the rate of decline is accelerating.
The tragedy is the potential extinction of humankind.
We face a convergence of crises, all of which are a concern for life. Will our pivotal generation create a sustainable world in time?
People need to realize there are things they can do in their everyday lives. Everybody making a change adds up to something meaningful.
Our project today is the welfare of all of life as a practical objective.
With existing technologies, we could literally reduce the human footprint on planet Earth by 90%.
We have to imagine what it would be like to redesign design itself.
These are not technical issues nearly as much as they are leadership issues. There was a time when Republicans and Democrats joined to pass major environmental laws. 500 years out, people look back at this time that this was our finest hour.
What a great time to be born. What a great time to be alive, because this generation gets to completely change this world.
Over half people in the UK and USA believe that global warming is not an issue and has been over-exaggerated by scientists and the world press. This is despite that right now we have unprecedented cyclones and floods in Queensland, raging forest fires. And for the first time ever, and because of 2 consecutive years of drought, the Amazon rainforest will be emitting, rather than soaking up CO2 gases, to the equivalent of the amount produced by the USA and Europe combined. Simplistically, the Earth's climate is balanced and controlled by factors including El Niño, El Niña, the Gulf Stream, temperature of oceans, and the jet stream. When we throw in humankind's contribution, the balance is lost and we experience extraordinary weather conditions. You should draw your own conclusions as to who is right, but the overwhelming evidence is that something unusual is happening. We need to ask these questions. Does the government have responsibility? Does corporate business have a responsibility? Do consumers have a responsibility? Do educators have a responsibility? Do designer makers have a responsibility? Or do we have to bother at all? So let's take a look at government responsibility. And disregarding David Cameron's starring role in Star Trek, can we expect any government in this age of austerity to have any focus on sustainable issues? But the one key fact is that sustainability can be profitable. There are numerous opportunities in key areas of business, including computer software, electronics, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, electricity generation. But there needs to be some incentive. Governments need to consider legislation on a whole range of green and environmental issues. We need to look towards zero landfill, and just as we have legislation informing us the contents of food, we also need to know the contents of our products. There should be tax breaks for the good guys, the green producers and manufacturers, zero VAT for green products and processes, eco-awareness through procurement in public sector industries, and above all, to insist sustainability is part of the national curriculum. We all need to lower our carbon footprints. Higher taxes on aviation fuel, higher taxes at the petrol pumps, meaningful transportation initiatives such as lowering of public transport costs. The problem is, we all like to fly, we all like to go on holiday. We all think it's the other person's problem. One thing we should expect and demand is a responsible government approach to aspects such as the Kyoto Agreement. Surely one of the most missed opportunities of all time. At the moment in time, a large number of countries, including Great Britain, are laying claims to ownership of areas of the Arctic. Within the Arctic Circle, there are an estimated 50 trillion tonnes of natural gas, 90 billion tonnes of oil, and 300 billion tonnes of precious minerals. The first uranium mine will be built in the Arctic in 2013, so we can build a lot more lovely nuclear bombs. So, maybe the Falklands War was not just about a group of Argentinians and 3 penguins. And maybe we should ask, is the Cold War about to start up again? So, now let's take a look at corporate responsibility. Corporate and social responsibility is the act of giving back to the community through local projects or helpful working practice. It's about being honest and aware of the impact a business has on the environment and on the local and global community. These are the components of corporate responsibility. They embrace ethical consumerism, social reporting, overseas sourcing, community involvement, worthy and core citizenship, social responsible investment, employee involvement, environment and cause-related marketing. With increased globalization, oil and energy resources running out, outcry over child labour in supply chains and poor working conditions, corporate responsibility has become a buzzword among the large corporations which have been faced with mass boycotts and protests from customers and suppliers alike. The face of business is changing. Businesses in 2011 and beyond must have ethical foundations and conduct responsible and responsive business. And that applies to businesses of all shapes and sizes, large and small. Some unpopular facts. Supermarkets dominate. Small suppliers go out of business. And focal point of the community, the corner shop, is under threat. The airline industry, the fastest growing contributor to greenhouse gas, pays no duty on fuel and no VAT on tickets. Water shortages are intensifying. By the end of 2011, over 50 billion people will be forced to become nomadic because of a lack of water or adequate food provision. Future wars will be fought over water and nutrition, not oil. Henry Ford stated that business must be run at a profit or else it will